as it is, like, I don't descend too quickly, and like guys are a lot quicker, and they'll usually be like on your butt, like, come on, come on. And I was like, I remember yelling like, I have no brakes. So last year we had a big ride called Strada Rossa. It's out in Redlands, and we were having the craziest winter last year. I don't know if you remember, it was raining every day. So we drive out to Redlands. The whole morning, it's like, the whole way there, it's pouring rain on us. We start hydroplaning in the car, so I'm like sweating in the car, freaking out. So we get there, we park far away from where it's gonna start because you have to drive there or ride your bike there. So we're riding our bike down to the start, and it's pouring rain on us. I have all this clothes on, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna be out here for a good 8 or 9 hours, and I'm already soaking wet, and this ride hasn't even started yet. So the plan was to ride with my friend Adrian. She's also one of my teammates. And so we start the ride together. Probably within the first 5 miles or so, we hit this climb, and it's all mud. And it's that like kind of like sticky peanut butter mud that's just like, if you try pushing your bike, it just gets stuck in your fork, and then your wheel doesn't even turn. So then you try carrying your bike, but now it weighs like 10 pounds more. So there's like no way around this. So we get to the top of this like super mud fest, and there's mud everywhere. People are like walking their bikes. It's just crazy. We start descending down the first descent, and the first descent was okay. Kind of sliding around. We're still having fun. It's still raining. We're like, this is cool. We hit another descent right after that, and it was kind of tighter switchbacks. And at this point, I think with the combination of all the mud going through all my gears and through everything in that other descent, I had no more brakes. So I'm going down this kind of really tight single track switchback descent, and I have no rear brake. So I'm thinking, if I hit that front brake way too hard, because there's people coming behind me, I'm gonna freaking fly over my bike and like off this mountain. And I'm like, ugh. So I get to the bottom, and I'm telling Adrian, I'm like, dude, I have no rear brakes anymore. I'm like, I can't go on. I'm like, this was mile 11. We hit the sag stop, and I'm telling the guy that. He's like, you know, all we have here is food, and you know, I can air up your tires. And I'm like, dude, that is not gonna help me. I'm like, I have no brakes. I'm like, this is mile 11. We have 90 miles of this. And at the same time, it's still raining. So I'm like under his little canopy, like with my lips are turning blue, and I'm shaking. And I'm like, and he's like, well, there's a bike shop about 11 miles from here that you can go to. And I'm like, ugh. So I tell Adrian, I'm like, okay, you go on you keep going on the ride, and I'll head up to the bike shop. And as I'm doing that, I'm standing there. More riders are coming in with the same problem. And they're like, dude, we have no brakes. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm gonna get to this bike shop now, because all these riders are coming in. We have, they're not gonna have 30 different brake pads. So I'm like, all right. So I start heading up to the bike shop. I get there, and they were so cool. The guy at the sag stop had called them and said, hey, you're gonna have a bunch of riders coming in. They're all gonna need brake pads. So I get there, and they were so cool. Like, they changed my brake pads, and they didn't even charge me. They're like, oh, it's on us. We're gonna change everybody's brake pads for free today. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, it was just like one of those things where like, okay, this is awesome. Let me get going. And I was probably riding, I wanna say a good 4 hours by myself. And and it's still cold, it's still rainy. It was probably like 42 degrees. And I hadn't seen anybody, like nobody, for like 4 hours. And I'm still on the course, of course, but I think I'm so far behind everybody that I'm not seeing anybody anymore. So I'm starting to I don't know, like sometimes when I'm out in the middle of nowhere by myself, like I kind of start doubting myself, like, am I in the right place? Like, am I still doing okay? So I get to this canyon, and at the beginning or at the base of it, there's a restroom. So I'm like, all right, I have to pee so bad, but at the same time, I'm soaking wet. And so I'm like, well, I have to pee. So I go in there. And of course, as a woman, I have to take everything off to go pee. And so I am taking off like layer after layer of just sopping wet clothes, and it's freezing. And if when you go into a park restroom, they're all cement. So of course I'm in this restroom, and it's even colder inside, I think, than it was outside. And so I'm like in the stall, pretty much naked, shivering, like peeing. And, I'm done. I'm like, trying to put everything back on now, like layer after layer. And my hands were like so cold and wrinkly from being wet all day. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to try to dry my gloves right now, because they were like super wrinkly. And so I'm putting them under like the little dryer thing and I'm pushing the button, I'm trying to get heat. Like it was like my only salvation at the time is like to get some sort of warmth and dryness. And I remember like peeking out the door and just like hoping like somebody would be there. Like it was like one of those, is anybody there? And so I'm looking and all you see is like the fog over the canyon and like you barely see trees or anything right there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to keep going. This was like mile 50. So like the last time I saw anybody, my friends, was like mile 11. And now I'm at mile 50, like 4 hours later, probably not seeing anybody. And I'm like, okay, I have to keep going. I want to get to the finish. I don't really know where I'm at, but I'm just going to keep going. And so I start going through the canyon and like, you can't really see anything, but like I'm looking far away, like trying to figure what's going on. And at the same time, I feel like I was going crazy because my feet were so cold. I seriously thought that like my toes were going to break off. I thought like in my head, I was imagining like thinking my toes are so cold, they're gonna break off right now because they're frozen. Like I thought I had frostbite or something, which of course I didn't. That's ridiculous. It was only like 43 degrees. But that's what I'm thinking. And then all of a sudden, like far away in the distance, like not too far, I see like a little like a blue light or something. And I realized that it was my friend Adrian who had started riding with. And I was like, I was like, Adrian! Like I felt like out of the Rocky movie when he's like, yo, Adrian! So I'm like yelling this and like she turns around, she's like, ah! So we like run to each other and like we're giving each other hugs and all that because it was like, oh my gosh, we hadn't seen each other. And like I'm like, I was lost and I don't know where I was. And like I was at the bike shop and so I'm telling her all my stories and she like definitely thinks I'm going crazy. She's a lot more calmer than I am. So she probably thinks like I'm going crazy at this time. And so we get to another sag stop and we're like, I'm scarfing down food because I don't think I had even eaten because I was like nervous and I really wasn't seeing anybody. At some point we're at this intersection. It was like mile 70 or so. And it had stopped raining. And so we're just chit-chatting and we're thinking, oh my gosh, this has been such a crazy day. And she mentions like, oh, it's so nice, it's not raining. And I remember telling her, I'm like, oh no, but I heard at 2 o'clock it was gonna be a downpour. And like, no lie, a minute later, it's downpouring. It's like we're standing under a shower. Like it's just pouring on us. And we both look down at our garments and we're like, it's 2 o'clock. Like it was like for once the weather report was like correct with that downpour being at 2 o'clock. And we look at each other and we're like, we're done. Like no more, we have to go. I'm like, so I think we ended up with maybe a little bit under 80 miles that day because we were like we didn't even care. We're like, we don't need the extra 10 miles. We just want to be done, get warm, have a beer, get some food. And that was it. We're like, all right, let's just go. I remember we passed by her house and she's like, do you want to come in and shower? Because she lived right there in Redlands. And I'm like, no, I'm going to the car and I just want to sit in there and put some warm clothes on and just sit for a little bit.